Okay, so today we are going to be carrying on with our IGCSE exam that we have been working on. The link is in the description of the video. Does everyone on Discord have the link?
I do. I'm in the exam right now.
Oh, sorry, I didn't see that you sent that message, Rowan.
Which message?
I wanted your opinion on my answer for yesterday's question, but I can answer it after this.
Yeah, that's okay. I was asking couple.
Okay. I'm just looking. Okay.
Sorry, a little conversation.
Pardon?
Sorry, we had a little conversation.
Why are you apologizing?
Because you can't find it now.
I actually love it when you guys have a lot of conversations. Makes the class a lot more fun, engaging, and it's about serious. Okay. So yesterday we went through our writer's effect, and I showed you how to write that paragraph 2 and how I would write it. It wasn't perfect. I never think my own work is perfect. I always see the errors in my work, and then I can go check them, I can go fix them later, but when I give myself a limited time, I've noticed, especially when I give myself a limited time like you all have, I make a lot of the same mistakes. Like not explaining myself properly, not actually connecting my thoughts with each other, using very basic vocab. If I use very basic vocab sometimes if I don't specifically tell myself you need to use some higher lexis. So I have to tell myself that, and I have to remind myself. So there's that.
Okay.
In terms of, okay, so we've got question 2, question 2D. Does anyone have any questions on question 2D? Those students who did send me their work, you can, those students who do want me to check it, I can go check it for you and give you feedback. There is a student, so just send me a message, send me a WhatsApp and tell me if you work and I can.
Okay.
Yeah.
Would you like a picture of the piece then?
Yeah, that's a good idea. I'll just send you a voice note. Okay, so we're looking at question 3. Question 3, imagine you are Helmuth from Text C. Straight after the evening that you and Max pitch camp, you write a letter to your mother. In your letter, you should comment on the most enjoyable parts of your journey so far and why they were enjoyable, the challenges you and Max faced, and how you overcame these challenges, the problems you foresee for the rest of your trip, and how you might have been better prepared for them. Okay, I want you to go through the piece quickly on your own and highlight the parts that you think are relevant. And then after that, I'm going to go through the piece and I'm going to highlight the I think are relevant while you guys are here. And I'll show you how I look for the information. Is that okay?
Okay.
Now, before we do that, I want to just discuss the format of this piece. So our question 3 is always going to be some kind of question about... Our question 3 is always going to be some kind of question that requires us to take the text that we've read and write usually a transactional piece. Or it's not... So we might need to write an interview, we might need to write an article, we're never going to be asked to write an essay, but it's going to be a transactional piece is a piece that basically functions. Let me just double check that I do understand the full depth of that word. Okay, so it says here transactional writing is when you're communicating with a specific audience for a specific purpose, trying to get a specific response. So you've had this long day and you have pitched your tent, you're in a good mood. We know that you're in a good mood because we've already explored how there was this positive atmosphere around pitching the tent or camping, and then you're going to write a letter to you. Okay? And in your letter, you're supposed to look at 3 main things. Now, your letter is supposed to be 250. Now, if we say 3 main things, we can say, okay, each of these points should be about 100 words. And then maybe our introduction and our conclusion should be about 50. Do you see how I work that out?
Yeah.
Okay. Because that means that you equally focus on all 3 aspects. So the most enjoyable parts of your journey so far, and why they were enjoyable. Okay? So this text is not just asking you to take directly from the text. You are supposed to take from the text and really get into it. You are emulating his writing style. You need to write in the same style as him. In order to write in the same style as him, you need to understand how he is actually writing. What is making him write in? Does that make sense? Yes?
The thing is, the piece is written by Max, so how do we know how Helmut writes?
Okay, that was a mistake I made. Thank you. I really appreciate you pointing out that mistake. Okay, so don't make the mistake I make. Don't write like Max, write like Helmut, and so you don't have to. I was actually a little bit shocked, to be honest, when I read this now, because I was like, oh my gosh, I thought this was an AS thing that we have to do to copy people's style. But, okay, great. The fact that it is not suddenly in IGCSE and I was just not aware of it this whole time is great. So we've got Helmut, and we're writing like Helmut. So we know we've kind of got an idea of who Helmut is. He said, okay, we're going to have to ditch some of our bags, and maybe we can drop our bags off in, I think they said Baghdad. And while Max was swimming in the Red Sea or attempting to swim, Helmut was just looking on and smiling. Okay, so we've got this this idea of who Helmut is, and the text itself has created an idea of who Helmut is, but it hasn't focused very deeply on it. Okay? Now, we are needing to write a letter to our mother, okay? So you're writing a letter to your mother. So in terms of a letter, what are the conventions of a letter?
The date, address.
Yeah?
Informal language. Since it's to his mother, so I can only assume it's informal.
So Yeah, I would say that it would probably be informal and it might be personal. It depends on the relationship he has with his. So, if you've got a good relationship with your mother, it's going to be more personal. If you don't have such a great relationship with your mother, it's going to be less personal and it's going to be a little bit more standoffish. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then we also need to ask, okay, so why is he writing a letter to his? Did his mother specifically say, write a letter to me every night? Do we want to mention that? It's necessary to mention that. Do we have the word count to mention unnecessary things? Will that add to our piece? Okay. Now, I want to just quickly go through the text. While you go through the text, I'm just going to open another thing that I want to show you. And I'll open the text. Yeah, but that's not really going to help. Just open the text and go read the text.
I have a quick question about the letter.
Yes.
Are they very strict about how you lay out the address and stuff? Because I know there are in Afrikaans, but is it the same in English?
I don't believe they are, but let me just double check.
Okay.
I also have a question.
Yes.
In the textbook that you gave us, one of the examples, the address was on the left instead of the right.
Mm-hmm.
So when does that happen?
Okay, so which textbook is this? So what?
Colin's textbook.
Okay, and tell me, was it a business letter or was it a personal letter?
I'm not sure.
Okay, because usually the usual conventions is for any letter you put your address on the left, and then if it is a business you will put the businesses. You put your address on the right, and then if it is a business you put their address on the left. However, I will just double check. I'm quite sure. Thing. Yeah, I don't think it's a big deal, honestly. The rubric isn't really talking about it. It says structure and sequence of sound throughout, but I think in terms of that, just make sure that you put your address, some kind of address. You put a date, and then you put a greeting, like dear mom, and then obviously a closing greeting, like. Because it's a personal letter, depending on how close you are with your mom, you might say, love you, love your name, or you might say, best wishes, depending on the relationship you have with your mom.
Okay. So
No, it's fine. So for this question, should we focus on just one high point, or should we focus on both the high points? Because I see two when I'm rereading the text. Your mic's muted again.
They say the most enjoyable parts of the journey so far
Parts.
Okay.
and why they were enjoyable.
Okay. Is it fine if I'm like highlighting the entire paragraph?
If that's going to be easy for you to understand and process.
Okay.
I'm giving you another 5 minutes.
Okay.
Is it fair to assume that Helmut was interested in the same things that Max was? Because like Max is talking about the birds here, but he doesn't really mention Helmut. So is it safe to assume that Helmut was also interested in the birds?
I mean, it depends how you do it. Just make sure that you are not basically writing as Helmuth, but really sharing all the experiences of Max.
Okay. So we can mention it, but we just have to say it from a different perspective.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, are you... Oh, wait. Something I just noticed. The relationship between Helmuth's mother and Helmuth is personal because of this reference to the luggage.
Yeah, how he lovingly packed. I saw that as
Uh-huh.
well. I have a question about the challenges.
Yes.
So I see two, which is the weight and the radiator overheating. But they both stem from the same problem, which is the weight. So does that make the only challenge the weight?
Okay, so I would say difficult terrain,
Yeah,
problems associated with the weather, so the intense heat, so they couldn't necessarily drive all day because it was so hot. Their car overheating, the luggage being a problem. And then also we could even talk about the disagreement that Helmuth and Max had about the luggage. That is a journey that they faced.
Okay.
And that is a challenge that they faced. And something you might also talk about is their anticipation of like the emotional strain of that's the problems we foresee in the trip. So the anticipation for the emotional strain during the rest of the trip, because it's a very long trip. Now, yeah. I must say that the third bullet point was probably the most difficult.
I haven't even started the third bullet point yet. Oh, I see. Okay. So this
Because
we just make up at this point.
No, you have to get it from the text. You will not get any marks for this point if you say general things like they're scared that they don't have enough supplies, or you might, if you move into the realm of speculation about like wild animals and bandits, anything that you talk about needs to be rooted in the details of the passage. It is based on the passage.
So even if that root is like really thin and thin, is it fine?
Yes,
like,
if that root is thin, it's fine, but it has to be there.
Okay.
Okay, I'm going to go through it now.
I couldn't exactly highlight the things, so I just copy pasted certain parts and put them in a Word document. Is that okay?
Yeah. It's okay. So I'm going to go through this. Our first question here, I'm actually going to put these side by side. Windows 11 generally sucks, but this is a great feature that I do like. Being able to do the side by side.
Cool.
Actually want to okay, so for this part, I would really recommend in your exam, how you're going to plan this out is you're actually going to take different color highlighters, and each point you're going to make a different color. Now, don't highlight on this page. I know you can't highlight in your writing, but I'm not sure if you can highlight in your questions. So I think you're allowed to, but like, I have heard one person say that you can't, so I'm just currently confused. I think you can highlight your questions, but I'm not totally sure, so I will just double check, and then I will let you know.
What would be the problem with highlighting your question?
I know you're definitely not allowed to highlight in your answer.
You're not allowed to highlight in your answer. Okay.
Yeah. So for the AS exam, you don't answer on the page. So that makes it a lot easier because you can highlight wherever you want. But for the IGCSE exam, obviously you are writing on the page. So okay.
Why is that?
Because you need to create emphasis with your words, not with a highlighter.
No, why do you do the IG exam on the paper and you do the AS?
I don't know. I don't know.
Okay.
Okay. So let's look at this. The most enjoyable parts of your journey so far and why they were enjoyable. Okay. So we're going to explore this in a couple of ways. I'm going to make the first point the enjoyable parts. Okay. We set off on our desert journey the following day in good spirits and full of high expectations. The car glided through the gorges of Judea, over bubbling hot asphalt until a signboard in Arabic, Hebrew, and English proclaimed the words sea level. The way descended another 400 meters, and it was a peculiar feeling to know that all the water in the oceans of the world was towering above us like mountains. Okay. So here you could talk about just the good spirits.
Feeling.
Yeah, so their feelings as they were driving down. So okay, so we can look at positive emotions at the start of the journey. Okay, and full of high expectations. The car. Okay, in front of us lay the leaden expanse of the Dead Sea. Was it true that it was impossible to sink in it? I tried for myself while Helmuth looked on and smiled. Okay, now this is
the whole paragraph.
Now, what would you have said about this paragraph? How would you have spoken about it?
I would have spoken about it like it's fun seeing Max like explore his curiosity and like his little show he posted at the
because I would say he's got a good relationship with Max. So it was fun seeing Max float in the water. Hilarious that Max tried to swim. And we can explore that a little bit. But now we've got the second part. Why were they enjoyable? Okay? We can say something like, it is nice to, okay, we're not going to say the word nice to, we're not going to use the word nice, we're going to find a better word. It is nice to just take a moment to enjoy the sight of happiness. I don't know. Something like that. So I wouldn't quite say it like that, but I mean, that is an exploration at least of why they were enjoyable. It's very important that we cover this why, okay? You lie on top of the water motionless, like a cork swimming in the conventional sense. And then we could even say here what it looked like to us, okay? Because we don't have what he has said. So we're going to talk about, we're going to actually tell our mom, give our mom some information.
Isn't like a cork more towards how it felt though?
Pardon?
Helmet, isn't like a cork more to how it felt though? Not how it looked.
The thing is, you're lying on top of the water, motionless like a cork. So that is how it felt and how it looked.
Okay.
Okay, so I would say give mom some information, perhaps something I find interesting. Helmuth does seem like the type of person who's like very much in his head and more of an introvert, I think. You agree?
Yeah, okay. Cool.
Now, the rest of this is not really relevant. But this bit of giving mom some information, finding something he finds interesting is really great because it creates that connection with the audience and it shows that you have this understanding of your audience. Now, I'm going to continue. I don't know if anyone is sending messages in the chat.
Sorry, it's just me.
So, however, reading a newspaper in comfort is just a publicity stunt. After only a few minutes, the salt begins to affect you. You itch and burn in every pore, and I wanted nothing else than to go into the River Jordan double quick and rinse the salt crust off. Helmuth laughed as I urged him to put his foot down on the accelerator. This is also a cute little moment. You can talk about the fun of the fun experience of Max complaining about the salt after being so incredibly eager. To swim. Then you could even add some kind of personal detail and say something like, you know how Max and I are. He is always getting himself into situations that I need to help fix. So that's a little detail we could add, although it is totally dependent on how many on our word count at the time. Because that does add some words.
Do they expect this level of thoroughness, like normally, from the exams?
Okay, so this is what you're going to do if you want full marks.
I see.
Okay. They want to see deep thought. They want to see connections being made. They want to see why things are enjoyable. all of these things. And then the other part that I know was enjoyable,
It was at the end, I think.
yeah, it was at the end, but I think I'll just change how I'm doing this now. Okay, here. This is where we have our challenge. The May sun blazes fiercely. Okay, and the engine labored its way up in first gear. The radiator thermometer was already showing 90 degrees. We're not going to use specific details like already, we're not going to use the words blazed fiercely. We're not going to use the word, okay, I mean, we can talk about how it was over 90 degrees, but we could, if we're Helmuth, we might want to be specific and say it was 93 degrees. But that would depend on the car and stuff like that. So you can add your own interpretation. You can add your own way of exploring that. But here I can talk about the challenges that you and Max faced and how you overcame these challenges. Okay. So the intense heat, that is a challenge. Okay. And how did they overcome?
I don't think they really said, but they did stop the car, which I suppose is another way.
Okay. So we're going to say the intense heat is a challenge. I'm also just going to add a note here that the radiator was overheating. That's also a challenge.
So that's a separate challenge from the intense heat.
Yes, because the radiator overheating is not just related to the sun blazing fiercely, but it is also related to the fact that the engine was going up in first gear, and it needed to go up in first gear because of the slopes.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so here I can even make a comment about the terrain. Okay, that's also a challenge. The car is far too heavy, so finding a way to empty the car.
That would be the storage in that city that I can't pronounce.
Yeah. Okay, so a solution to empty the car is a way that they overcame the challenge. Okay. Now, this is also something that we've got here. Out of the corner of my eye, I could see anxiety on my face, and I bit my lip, controlling an urge to point out that most of our luggage was his, packed lovingly by his mother before we started out. The overloaded car springs were groaning on the bumpy road. Okay. So we could have like a nice little moment here, and we could say, like connecting with our mom, and we could say something like,
Mom, you love me too much.
yeah. You packed far too much in my suitcases. And then we could even have like a moment and say, I already miss you. I feel like having these moments of connection with the mom in between things will really add depth to what we're saying. And would do you agree with me?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
The word counts is still a problem for me.
What you mean? It's too much or too little?
Too little. Even without all these little details, I think I'd be skating along the lines of the word count.
Yeah, it is a problem, honestly. I'll see. I will, when we're finished with this, I'll compile mine and see, okay, now how many words is it actually if you add all these things? So, okay, we can talk about the brooding.
Also, is it necessary to mention everything, or can we focus on like specific?
You don't have to focus everything. Just make sure that you do mention both aspects of this. Don't only mention like one point, but like how we mark this is we would see, okay, you've mentioned that point that you get, that's A1, 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 A2, A3, A2, A2.
So it'd be like mention everything and then elaborate briefly on everything. Or would you rather mention everything and then elaborate heavily on the one point?
If you're going to mention an enjoyable part, tell me why it is enjoyable. Don't mention 10 enjoyable things and only mention why one thing was enjoyable. Okay. So this whole part is all about the radiator, okay? Or the weight, okay?
Yeah.
And then here, I feel like this is a solution to the problem.
Yeah.
But I also feel that it is an opportunity to mention how much you appreciate Max. Do you see that?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like at this point, like, they are friends. You can see they are friends. Like, this is kind of reminding me of my relationship with my best friend. We just about never see each other, but, you know, if I've got a problem, he'll solve it. Okay. Now we're looking at challenges to come. Okay? The challenges you foresee for the rest of the trip and how you might have been better prepared for them.
I only saw the one, which is the stress.
So easier in our minds, we waited for darkness to fall before we drove on. Okay, so that was another solution that they had, honestly.
Wow. Okay.
Oh yeah, I didn't notice that.
Okay, night journeys are not only color-coded, but are beautiful in the East. So we can talk about the beauty. That's actually something they're enjoying. Over the landscape arched a sky sparkling with the plethora of stars along the rocks of a gorge, huddled flocks of storks, shining like patches of snow. I think this is a good thing to... Obviously, do not use the exact words used. I wished I'd brought a better camera. The birds were not alarmed, being tired from the long journey. They had come from Sudan. The next day they would fly on and the European springtime. Few of them raised their heads sleepily, followed us with a long, serious gaze. Perhaps they were thinking, funny these south now. 11 o'clock. So this is also something that they probably enjoyed.
Yeah.
Okay. Now, I have not highlighted any challenges. Okay, let's look for some challenges. Not challenges, I mean potential problems that we foresee. Okay. Just give me a moment. Just looking for our road. Okay, so here where they've got this, we've come about 400 kilometers so far, and there are about 23,000 still to go. So they started the journey with optimism. But after 400 kilometers, they
really realized how long the trip is.
realized how long the trip is. And that, I would think, would be a thing. So a challenge, so a thing that they need to explore is they need to manage their expectations.
They probably also should have gotten the better car.
Okay, and then yeah, okay, so we've got the car story. Okay, let's just look here. The problems we'll face in our journey to come. We'll have to jettison some of our luggage, so we're going to struggle. We'll struggle until we can lessen the baggage.
And even then, you'll probably be losing someone after that.
Yeah. And we can say something like, perhaps needed a better car. So these are things that we could have mentioned there. So the things that would have like just not been the right thing to talk about is like a fear of encountering wild animals or bandits. That's not quite what we're going for.
They want roots to the original piece.
Yeah. We need to look at their specific journey. And yeah, so I've got actually less points here when it comes to that.
Is that alright though, if you have less points for one topic?
So we could say something like, so we've got here that they might not make it to Baghdad. They might have struggles finding storage for the luggage.
They could also have troubles getting it out again.
Yeah.
Country.
Now just make sure that all of these things should have researched the actual terrain. You could also talk about the emotional strain. So the emotional strain on their friendship. Of such an an intense trip. Okay? So constantly having to have Max kind of take care of him is going to kind of get on Max's nerves, actually.
He's getting used to it really a challenge, though.
The thing is, like, what if it rains?
Then they sleep in the car, I suppose.
Yeah, but that's uncomfortable and they have to drive the whole day next day.
Fair enough.
So, yeah, the novelty might wear off. They should have maybe thought about hotels.
Maybe they have tents or something. We don't really know.
Well, the fact that they're sleeping just under the stars, I don't know if they've got tents. We don't know. Oh, and then something we might mention there, that we get this information from that road sign that has all the different languages. There might be some kind of, like, the road signs in Asia aren't necessarily English.
Yeah. Jared mentioned the language barriers.
So, yes, and then yeah, I think that is kind of what I will build my thing on. Okay? Do any of you have any questions on that?
Do you have any tips on saving time while doing this process?
Literally this planning that I've just done, you take it and then you go through and you number it and you see what order you're going to talk about it in, because please don't talk about it in the exact same order that the text is in.
Okay.
Okay? So you order it and you group information and then you should be able to write it very quickly.
Okay.
If you plan, you write a lot faster. But if you're sitting there thinking, I don't know what to write, that's where the real challenge is. Does that make sense?
Okay. It's like when I was doing grade 9, when they were preparing me for stuff like this, they said, like, ditch the planning.
I don't think you should do planning like on a page where you do that like mind map thing and do your planning. But if you do not plan a piece like this, you will not get an A star. Well, you might if you're brilliant, but you have to be able to hold all that information in your head. And you have to, I'm a very visual person, so it helps me to have all the stuff on the page and to see, okay, have I covered everything? Yes, I have.
Okay.
I wouldn't go so intense in the comments. I wouldn't write the full comments out. I would just like write a very short note form comment.
Okay. On average, how long do you think this planning process would take? Like for an average student?
I have no idea. How long does it take you, Sydney? Because you do the planning, right?
When I wrote the paper, I didn't do any planning. So
anyone else? Kai, you do planning?
I kind of look at which ones I would.
Note-taking stuff. I would probably do no note-taking. I would just highlight. And then, yeah, because I remember my thoughts. Obviously, I would have to take my Ritalin before my thing, because otherwise there's no getting me to through exam. But I mean, if I'm able to focus through an exam, I will be able to, at this point, remember all my thoughts. And if I'm scared that I'm not going to remember my thoughts, I'm going to write like one word instead of these whole sentences.
Okay, so just highlight in short notes. That's how you do your planning.
Yeah.
Okay.
Any other questions on that?
When I do mock tests or things, I always read the questions first before trying to find the answers in the passage.
Mm-hmm.
Is that a good or a bad thing?
Actually, I do that as well a lot of the time. I've seen that it works for some people and it doesn't work for other people. So do what works for you. Personally, I find that it is very effective for me because when I am reading in an exam, I'm not reading to enjoy the passage. Yes, I should enjoy the passage, whatever, but I'm reading so that I can do this exam. Okay? When I'm in an exam, I'm not thinking about, is this teaching me something? Like, great, if you should be learning through your exam, but you should be more focused on, am I like processing am I actually answering the question? So my big challenge is that I misunderstand things, especially questions and things. And actually, when I looked at the examiner's report, Rowan, it said that many students thought it was Max who was writing, and that was due to a reading error. And I know I definitely would have made that reading error because I sometimes really struggle to read instructions. And many of my students can very much relate to this, with many of them having dyslexia or ADHD. We don't necessarily pay attention to detail. So it is important in this question, paying attention.
Okay.
So I just want to show you all quickly what we are being marked on.
Is that in bold or is this a rubric? Oh, it's a rubric, okay.
So we're being marked on whether we are doing an evaluation and analysis of the text. Okay? So we don't have to like actually analyze the text, but we need to actually look at the text and try and make come to some kind of conclusions about what's being said. And then we need to like actually evaluate, we need to actually use that in our writing. Developing ideas and these ideas need to be sustained. We need to follow through with our ideas. And our ideas need to be related to the text. We need a wide range of ideas. We can't just have like 1 point for each. We need to have supporting detail throughout. So not quoting from the text, obviously, because that would be totally inappropriate. But we need to have this clear sense of purpose and approach. So our purpose in writing to our mom is to inform her, but also connect with her. And that's why I had all those moments where I connected with my all 3 bullet points are well covered. A consistent and convincing voice is used. So I need to actually sound like Helma. Okay. So you were asking earlier, Rowan, how do we write like someone else? So this isn't really relevant for this question, but in terms of how we're expected to do it in AS, which we were expected before 2020, we have sometimes it's not really so much expected now, but there is still, you need to kind of figure out what someone's style would be. But how we would do it is, if we're given a text and we need to match their style, we would like do a deep dive into how have they used language to what effect. And then when we've done that, we can say, okay, well, I can just use language in the same way to use the same techniques. So it's about breaking down what techniques they've used. Does that make sense?
Sort of. I don't really know how to approach writers of text though. Like, this is something I was confused about yesterday as well.
We will do a lot more work on writers.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Cool.
Don't worry, this isn't like the last time you will ever look at it. Then we've got our writing side, and that's a structure and order style of writing. So we've got, we're looking at a register, and it needs to be the correct register for the audience and the purpose. The language needs to be convincing and consistently appropriate. Okay? We need to express our ideas. We need to have effective language that is interesting. Okay? Use some interesting words. Use some interesting phrases. Actually be interesting in your writing. Your structure and sequence are sound throughout. So make sure that you have sequenced the events correctly. Make sure that you haven't just... Yeah, you have found a way to sequence them in a logical way. Then spelling, punctuation, and grammar almost always accurate. Okay. So you can even make a couple of mistakes with your spelling, punctuation, and grammar. Must be almost always accurate. Like you can make like 1 or 2 mistakes, but they're not going to be like, okay, well, you made a mistake, so you can't fall into level 5. Okay. Any other questions from anyone? Chat. Oh, you all go, Jared. Okay, cool. So what I would like you to do for me is complete this question 3. I'm going to complete this question 3. I'm going to read you the answer, read you my answer in our next session. And then we are going to move on to paper 2. We're going to work through paper 2 quite quickly. And then we are going to have Q&A sessions next week. And I know we were supposed to have a normal session this week sometime, but because of my load shedding, that was not. But we will have more normal sessions next week, where we aren't working through an exam. Okay. Cool. Bye, everyone.
Oh, is the lesson over already?
Well, I can sit here and you can do the work while I'm sitting with you on stream. So